My guests tonight include two of the great names of entertainment. One is a lyric writer who can rank with the best, with Gershwin, with Berlin, with Porter, Hart. You name them, and you have to include him, because he wrote shows like My Fair Lady, Gigi, Camelot, Brigadoon, and Paint Your Wagon, to mention but a few. He's Alan Jay Lerner. My other legendary name is best described as one of the greatest stars on both sides of the Atlantic that this country ever produced. She's the evergreen Jessie Matthews. My first guest is by comparison no but a lad, but with an enviable reputation as a star on stage, television, and radio. He's something of an all-rounder, but on television he established himself in a series of programs as Britain's favourite silly ass, a veritable twit. Ladies and gentlemen, Derek Nimmo.
Veritable twit. Veritable twit. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
Well, you've been called that before, haven't you? In the nicest possible way.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yes. Not only by you, of course, but I remember years ago, this was about 12 years ago, a journalist from the Daily Mail came to see my small son and infiltrated the house. We were out at the time. And one got back with horror to discover he'd given an interview to the Daily Mail. And the day before the article came out, they sort of promoted it that tomorrow, Timothy Nimmo and his father, Derek, my father is a twit. I thought, oh my goodness gracious. Anyway, I got the paper that day, and it said, the headline was, my father is a twit, but a very nice twit. There's a lot of money in being a twit. I want to be a twit when I grow up. He's now 22 and he's doing quite well.
But in fact, I mean, our actors like the characters they play. I mean, you played so many of this kind of accident-prone role, didn't you? I mean, you like that in real life or what?
I'm not a proper, clever actor like Alec Guinness, who always comes on with a different nose and a funny hat, or Peter Sellers. I do tend to behave in much the same way as I am. I mean, there are actors who are character actors, and there are people who just behave, and I suppose I do behave in a slightly vague way. I'm very forgetful, and I am slightly accident-prone. Things do seem to happen to me in a rather curious way. So, indeed, there is quite a lot of them to myself, and most of the characters that I play, even sometimes when I'm sitting there doing an interview program, I suppose there's a bit of that in the kind of questions that I ask as well. But I think with most actors, really, I think particularly comedy actors, they tend to be rather serious when they're playing comedy, because comedy is a very serious business. And my favourite comedy actor that I've worked with was dear Robertson Hare, who was nearly 90, who was in all the Gas and Gable series playing the Archdeacon, and he was a wonderfully serious actor. Always wanted to play Hamlet, always wanted to play in tragedies, and that's what gave his comedy such a very curious quality. I remember he was having dinner with us not long ago, and I happened to ask him, we call him Bunny, I said, Bunny, what did you do in the First World War? And he said, I was in the Bicycle Corps. I said, really? I said, what did you do in the Bicycle Corps? He said, well, we used to cycle against the Boche on our bicycles. And now I asked him, what happens if you were shot at, if you used to take cover? And Pat said, where? And he said, behind our bicycles. He said, then one day, a terrible accident befell me. We were gathered on the parade ground at Wipers, and the brigadier gave the order to mount bicycles. And I mounted my bicycle, and I landed on my left testicle, which then assumed enormous proportions. And I was invalided out of the Bicycle Corps. There's a very sort of accident-prone story, isn't it? I actually, funny enough, the last I was doing I tell that story in New Zealand last year on a little religious program, actually. And the lady was slightly surprised, and she said, and we were recording it was on radio, and she suddenly stopped and thinking, no, we can't go on. She said, you can't say that on a Christian program. And I said, well, what? He said, you can't say that word. I mean, a testicle on a Christian program. I said, I don't see why not. I'm sure at least 50% of your audience have got two of them.
I wonder, too, how much... the fact you were on a religious program to start with, I assume, was because of the old brother thing, was it? I mean...
Well, yes, it does tend to go a bit like that, because I did two, actually. I did three, really. I did one called All Gas and Gators, in which I played the bishop's chaplain. And then I alternated for a long time with one called Oh Brother, in which I played a Catholic monk. And then latterly, I played in one called Oh Father, in which I got promoted. And in fact, once on Christmas Day, I played a nun as well, as a matter of fact. But so one does, because of those programs, people, I suppose, do associate me with the ecclesiastical world. I mean, I've had a dreadful time during the Lambeth Conference, because bishops from all over the world who I've met in my travels have arrived in London and rung me up, and I've been taking bishops out for weeks now. And it's and even when I was in Singapore the other day, and I was walking along the street, and this chap came up and he said, "You're pleased?" I said, "I beg your pardon." He said, "You're pleased?" I said, I'm terribly sorry. He said, "Your television, please." And it so happened that one of the theatres was showing in Singapore. Television priest, you meant, yes.
Apart from the happening in New Zealand, do you in fact get accused of being irreverent from other sources because of the association with the...
Yes, not often from the professionally religious. I don't think we funnily enough, when we were doing the series, I don't think we ever had a letter of complaint from a parson. Well, I did actually have a letter from a Baptist minister at one point saying that he thought there ought to be a non-conformist ecclesiastical series. There had been a Catholic one over rather than a Protestant one or Gas and Gators. But he said that the non-conformist church had been completely neglected. Sort of masochism run wild. And once from a Salvation Army captain who actually sent me some scripts. And mind you, I think you might be right. I rather fancy myself with the tambourine. But funnily enough, just the other day, I was doing a series called Life Begins at 40, in which for once, thank goodness, I wasn't playing a celibate. My wife was having a little baby in the program, if you see what I mean. And anyway, for some years, I've done readings for the Scripture Union. And I had a letter from them. I was going to open some little thing that they've got, some tapes I've done for them. And they had a number of letters of protest, because on this program, in one episode only, I said bloody twice. And I also said, "Oh my God." Now, that was in the script. It wasn't me, as you understand. And so Red Eye was sort of invited to withdraw from it because I was drummed out. And so instead of going to open the thing, Scripture Union on Thursday, I picked up the Dean of Melbourne, who was an old chum of mine, and drove him up to Lincoln, you see. And as we were all driving up to Lincoln, he looked out the window and said, "Derek, that's a bloody marvellous view," which is the word that I'd said, you see, on the program.
He's got a special dispensation, you see.
It is odd, you know, how people get terribly excited by bloody, because not many people think of it as a blasphemy, as being corruption by Our Lady. And you can say blinking. Nobody minds saying blinking by Our Lady's kin, or, you know, God blimey, God blind me. They don't think of that as being...
I never knew that blinking was by Our Lady's kin. I'd been no idea.
And similarly, of course, I mean, how few people, when they say goodbye, think of it as being a corruption of God be with you? You don't, do you? You say two silly noises, goodbye. And, I mean, in France, they say adieu, or adios, you know, to God, which sort of makes sense. So we just say goodbye. And I can't understand people being offended by mere noises like bloody. Nobody ever thinks it meaning anything very much, do you, really?
No.
I don't.
Let's talk about travel now,
do.
because you, in fact, mentioned two places you've been to, New Zealand and Singapore. New Zealand was quite recently, was it?
Yes, I was there for about 3 months last year. And dear Robert Morley advised me about, you know, I've been out a couple of times before, but he said, you know, whatever you do, dear, do be nice about the whiteface, dear, because they won't come and see you if you're nasty about the whiteface. And it's a lovely country, really. There are 4 million sheep and 60 million people, and after a while it shows, you know. And all the things that they say, you know, you're now landing in New Zealand, please put your watches back 30 years, it's a bit unkind, but actually, I had been out the previous year, Michael, because they'd asked me to go and do something called a telethon. Now, do you know what a telethon is? They have in America a lot, and indeed in Australia. It's a 24-hour television appeal in aid of a particular charity. And this was in aid of their children's hospital appeal. And so I flew out there as an act of charity to be on the thing all night. But when I got there, I was met by a man with a large envelope and handed it to me, and it was from their Inland Revenue Department. And they claimed that I owed them some £5,000 in tax from a previous visit with a musical called Charlie Gun. I thought, how spitefully mean, because I hadn't heard from them at all in the intervening years. It had been absolutely quiet. And I'd flown out there to help the Children's Hospital appeal, and there was this nasty letter. So, it was from a Mr. R.G. Clare. hope nobody's watching from the New Zealand High Commission. Anyway, Mr. R.G. Clare had written to me saying that I owed him this money, so I looked him up in the Auckland telephone directory, and there was only one Mr. R.G. Clare. So when I went on the programme that night, I said, ladies and gentlemen, how lovely it is to be here in New Zealand with all those lovely dear sheep, and to have flown across the Tasman to be with you and all that sort of thing. And I said, I've had a wonderfully generous letter here from Mr. R.G. Clare of the Inland Revenue Department. If anybody would like to telephone him at 347-256 between now and dawn tomorrow, he'll be very happy to contribute $10 to the Children's Hospital Appeal. Well, a frightfully angry Mr. R.G. Clare arrived at my hotel the next morning and said, I like your sense of humour. He'd had some 370 telephone calls during the night. So the sequel to it was, actually, that this last year when I was going out again, I couldn't, only cost me $5,000, I might say, but it was worth it. But when I was going out last year, I couldn't actually be there in time for the telethon, so they asked me if I'd phone in to the studio during the telethon and wish them well. So I rang up and I said, oh, by the way, whilst I'm chatting, don't forget to look up Mr. R.G. Clare in the directory and ring him up and ask him for his annual donation. Well, a few days later, I got a letter from Mr. R.G. Clare, very nice it was, saying, thanking me very much indeed for keeping his name in front of the New Zealand public and acting as his unofficial press representative. He said that I might be interested to know that since my last visit, he'd been made head of the Inland Revenue in Wellington. I could only assume that the illustrious post that he now occupied was due to the fact that he got $5,000 out of Nimmo last year. It was very nice.
Do you still travel as much, Joey? Because you're a great traveller, aren't you?
Yes, I do, really. I'm going to Australia next month again, but we're awfully lucky these days with television that our programmes go to so many parts of the world, or the comedy programmes that one does, and all sorts of new places open up. And like, for instance, I flew the other day to do a cabaret in Dubai.
Dubai?
You know, the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, went to Muscat and then to Dubai. And that was very interesting because I did something called the first annual Gulf Mirror Press Ball. It's probably the last one, too. But anyway, when I got there, the worried organisers came over to me and said, no, for goodness sake, whatever you do, no Jewish jokes here, because they don't acknowledge that Israel exists. And for heaven's sake, no Pakistani jokes, because there are 100,000 Pakistanis here doing all the work. So no Pakistani jokes. And whatever you do, don't mention the British Embassy, because we're having terrible trouble with the British Embassy here. So one felt a little bit inhibited. Anyway, I went on the start of my cabaret. I think it's awfully nice to hear. But I've been told there are three things I mustn't mention. I mustn't mention a certain state on the grounds that it doesn't exist. I mustn't mention Pakistanis on the grounds that they do exist. And I mustn't mention the British Embassy because nobody's quite sure whether it exists or not. And they were quite so nice of that. But it's terribly funny, you know. Have you been to the Gulf?
No, I haven't.
Well, it's very curious because, as I said, a lot of English people working very hard and a lot of Pakistanis. But you see, there aren't any Arabs because they're all in Harrods. And it's empty. And I went into a mosque. It's all like a great big building site. They're building all sorts of useful things like replicas of Big Ben with a fountain underneath. Terribly important. And anyway, I went to this mosque and I met this Arab chap and I said, you know, tell me, are there any old Arab houses left here in Dubai? Because there were only 20 families there 15 years ago. He said, and he was living on the beach now with his Rolls Royce and his swimming pool. He said, I will take you back to my old family house. That's very kind. I said, how lovely. So he took me back there, and it was a mud house on 2 floors. And I opened the doors, and it was filled with Pakistanis, all sleeping on little trestle beds. I said, good Lord. I said, well, tell me, I mean, how much do they pay a sleeper? He said, wait a moment. Tell me, how much these black fellows pay to sleep here? And it was £4 a week each, you see. And I said, well, you know, how many have you got in here? He said, tell me, how many of these black fellows we got in here? 450. He was getting nearly £2,000 a week from the 4 Pakistanis who were staying there. It was very interesting. But where I live in Kensington, there's one sheik who has moved into my road. He's got 6 houses, and he's got 6 wives. He has one for each. 2 doors away now, they're keeping hens. Isn't that nice? And I probably haven't had hens in Kennington for, I don't know how many years, but you know, he's doing a very friendly, and they every night at a certain time, they slit one of their throats. So they're going, it's different. But,
that's the watching television, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And then during Ramadan, we had a call to prayer. And, you know, a lot of the things one liked. And when they come here for about 3 months, you know, it was lovely when they first arrived this year, and one saw them wandering through Hyde Park Gardens, picking lovely ladies in long cloaks, picking bunches of daffodils. And then the other day I went to a friend who lives in Belgrave, and they were cooking kebabs on the pavement. But what I do find a little upsetting, well, not upsetting, but you know that all that lovely Iranian graffiti that you see on the walls everywhere in Kennedy, Belgravia, saying that the Shahs are, well, I don't know quite what it's yes, but all written in these little squiggles, you see. And I feel that if they are going to write on our walls all the time, they ought to be forced by law to publish subtitles. So we know what they're saying. Anyway. Right. No, it is.
I just never thought of it before.
This particular chap who is in my rate, he's got 6. No, to each house, as I said, there are 6 wives. He lives in another house with his mistress. But he's that's why he wears one of those long shirts all the time. But, he has 2 Daimler princesses, those very big limousines per house, and they're £500 a week each for each car. And one of the chauffeurs was telling me just this afternoon that every week when they get paid out, he has a very big suitcase of notes and just pays them out like that. No, nice.
Well, we'll never be.
We'll never be.
Particularly with Mr. Clare looking after your business affairs.
Well, absolutely not.
That's right. There's no way you'll make a penny like that. Yeah. Derek Nimmo, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well, think of My Fair Lady, Camelot, Gigi, that'll do to be going on with. Think of the songs. I could have danced all night, the street where you live, wouldn't it be lovely, getting to church on time, grown accustomed to her face, the night they invented champagne, Gigi, If Ever I Would Leave You, How to Handle a Woman, and this one.
How lovely to sit here in the shade, with none of the woes of man and maid. I'm glad I'm not young anymore. The rivals that don't exist at all, the feeling you're only 2 feet tall. I'm glad that I'm not young anymore. No more confusion, no more need after surprise, no self-delusion. That's when you're telling those lies, she isn't wise. And even if love comes through the door, the chant that goes on forevermore, forevermore is shorter than before. Oh, I'm so glad that I am not young anymore.
Well, the words to that song and all the others I mentioned and others that will be sung, so long as there are people alive to sing good popular songs, were written by my next guest. Together with his collaborator Fritz Lowe, he formed one of the most famous musical partnerships of the century. Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Jay Lerner. You've written so many lyrics, I don't know where to start at. Let's start with that one, Miss Chevalier. Was that one of your favourite ones?
Well, it was actually almost his idea, because when I first met him, I asked him how it felt to be 70 or 71 years old, which is what he was when he made the film. And of course, he said, well, considering the alternative, it wasn't too bad. But I remember when we went into the recording studio to make that song, he said to me, would you mind terribly, he said, come with me and sit outside and tell me if it's all right. So I sat outside in the control room and he recorded the song. And then he said, he came back to see me afterwards. He said, how was it? I said, Maurice, it was perfect. He said, but how was the accent? I said, oh, I understood every word. He said, no, was there enough? Yeah. So he was very shrewd. He knew exactly how to be French and toujours.
That's right. Of course, he was one of the legendary figures, was he not, of the... And one of your great heroes, too.
Yes. When I was a child, I grew up listening to every little breeze seemed to whisper Louise, and all those songs.
With, of course, the reputation for meanness that few have surpassed.
Well, it isn't that he was mean, but he was frugal. He was, as we say in the States, close with a dollar,
Yes.
And at the time, when he was first went out to Hollywood, he was making something like $20,000 a week. There was a parking lot outside Paramount where you could park your car for 10 cents. 4 blocks away, you could park it for 5 cents. And that's where he parked.
Really? As on $20,000 a week?
Yes, I'm sure he died at a ripe old age with every penny that he ever had. What a name.
Yeah. What's your favorite lyric, Alan, of the ones that you've written?
Well, actually, it's from that film. It was the song Gigi.
Oh, you like that one?
Both Fritz and I are we judge things differently, I suppose, than whether something is popular or not. It just so happened that one was, but we always judged it from, did we accomplish what we set out to do,
Yes.
And that song seemed to us to be the most successful from that point of view.
Was it a difficult one to get together, the words and the music?
Well, it was created under rather bizarre circumstances. Not very romantically, I might add. We were working in Paris, and Fritz was in the living room playing, and I was in the bathroom. And suddenly I heard this beautiful melody, and I came running into the room, forgetting, if I might say, that my trousers were around my ankles. And I took a header as I went into the living room, and Fritz saw me fall down, and he assumed, I guess, that having fallen down, I would get up, because he didn't do anything about it. He said, do you like that? I said, yes, it's beautiful, from down there on the floor. And that's, it was Gigi.
That's a lovely love song came to be written, yes. How long do you agonize over a lyric? I mean, is it always the same kind of agony that you go through when you compose?
Some go a little easier than others, but actually, I suppose I average 7 or 8 days, 10, 12 hours a day. Although I remember one song that I did not write with Fritz Lowe, called On a Clear Day, You Would See Forever. And I started working on it for about a week, and I got nowhere. And then I thought, well, I can't do this the rest of my life. So I will work 3 hours every morning on it, and then I'll get on to something else. And I didn't finish it for 8 months.
Really?
And it really leaves you feeling rather foolish, I have this fantasy, that I'm locked in a hotel room for several days, and all of a sudden, everybody I know, my children, my wife, everybody comes into the room and they say, what are you doing here for 3 or 4 days? And I say, well, I have been writing. And they say, what have you been writing? And I say, I could have danced all night. I could have danced all night and still have begged for more. And then they just take me away to the insane asylum. Because that's the way you feel,
All right. Of course, My Fair Lady, when you talk about that, you talk about an extraordinary phenomenon, don't you? I mean, it's possibly been the most successful musical ever written, hasn't it?
Yes, I believe it has.
Has anybody ever estimated how much money that musical's made from the moment that you wrote it?
Well, it has been estimated roughly, as it was 2 years ago, considering they estimated it from a point of view of all the grosses of all the theaters and all the recordings that have been made. And it came to something like 500 million pounds.
500 million pounds?
Yes.
Truth.
It didn't go to me, but I mean...
He went to that Arab that did it.
They've got it all, I assure you.
Yes, that's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
What made you want to do that? as a property? And I mean, obviously, it wasn't a sort of a wild guess on your behalf.
Well, no, somebody, a man named Gabriel Pascal, who owned the rights, a rather legendary figure who acquired the rights from Shaw. As a matter of fact, I asked him how he ever, because he was an unknown producer, and he said that how he ever got those rights. And he said that he went out to Shaw's house at 8 at St. Lawrence, and he knocked on the door, and he had a very thick Hungarian accent, and the maid came to the door, and he said, "Who is it?" He said, "I am Gabriel Pascal." And she said, "Who sent you?" And he said, "Tell him fate sent me." So Shaw was on the steps and heard that and came to the door and said, "What are you and what do you want?" He said, "I am a producer, and I wish to bring your great works to the screen." And Shaw said, "How much money do you have?" And Pascal looked in his pocket and he said, 12 shillings. And Shaw said, "Come in, you're the first honest movie producer I ever met." That's how he got the rights. And then he came to Fritz and me about doing it as a musical many, many years later.
Yes. What about you've written an awful lot of very, very memorable stuff not for singers, but for actors, haven't you? One thinks specifically of Rex Harrison and, of course, Richard Burton. Larry Harvey, too, of course. I mean, he played Camelot, did he not, in London. Do you prefer writing for actors?
Well, I discovered that I did because I was forced to write for Rex. When I say forced, I don't mean it was a hardship. But the idea of doing Shaw, of doing Higgins as a baritone, where suddenly you would hear this marvelous Shavian dialogue, and a moment later there would be a voice coming out, and you'd say, "Where's that voice coming from?" It obviously had to be some relationship. There had to be some relationship to what he sang, to his normal voice production. And so we evolved sort of speech singing for Rex. And the minute we started doing it, I suddenly felt very much at home doing it. And then continued doing it, and because it seemed like my most natural form of expression.
But is it because also that actors perhaps treat the words better than a singer does? I mean, with more reverence,
they phrase them. An actor, I've heard you in musicals, an actor phrases, you see, and much more to the spoken word than he does to the musical line.
Yes.
And so many singers today, they will take, or any singer, they will take extraordinary liberties, and there will be an extra long decrescendo or something. And by the time you get to the end of the sentence, you've forgotten what the beginning of the sentence was.
Right.
So, but when you have to write for somebody like Rex or an actor, he has to sing it the way you say it. I've grown accustomed to her face, just the way you say it.
Yes.
And for me, it makes better lyric writing.
How did you make out, Derek, when you went into a musical? Because, in fact, you can't sing, can you?
Not at all, no. Absolutely awful noise, really. No, my only claim to musical fame is I actually can change key in the middle of a note. But,
really, that isn't a hardship. Kurt Weill told me that Gertrude Lawrence had the greatest range between C and C sharp he'd ever known.
But I sort of, it's now known, of course, as doing a Rex Harrison since my family.
Yeah.
If you get a number which you can't sing, they say, well, just do a Rex Harrison. They chat your way through it. And but if I actually have to sing, I've always arranged, because, not you, sir, but people who write the music, Mr. Lowe, for some curious reason, when you're rehearsing it, the piano's going along playing the tune for you, and get to know it all, and it's all very lovely. Suddenly the orchestration arrives, and the band plays something totally different. No relationship to the song at all. And then you have to sort of sing on your own. So I can't do that, and I wander off in all sorts of directions. So I've got it worked out now that I always have an occasional flute, or a suspicion of a piccolo, or something like that, down at my feet, you see, playing the tune.
Well, this is what drove Rex absolutely crazy, because he had rehearsed with the piano, and then suddenly he was on a stage, and there were all these strange men down there playing, and the melody was over there, and he was standing over here. And, of course, he said, I can't go on.
Yeah.
He said, I can't do it. I said, well, we can't get rid of the orchestra. So we had to keep rehearsing it. And then he rehearsed for a while, and when he came to Why Can't a Woman Be More Like a Man, he said, why can't a woman be more like a man? And he stopped. And I said, Rex, go on. Have you forgotten the lyrics? He said, no, I'm waiting for the laugh. I said, but the whole orchestra can't wait for the laugh. You have to just keep going.
Yes. But there was, of course, the marvelous thing about him. He did always find the laughs. And
yes.
It was the great humor. And, of course, Stanley Holloway.
Oh, well, yeah.
All those wonderful laughs within my fair lady, which are due, of course, to the funny lyrics.
What's interesting, actually, in this... I must pay you a compliment, actually, because sitting in this chair for as long as I have done, I've been forced to read every show business autobiography under the sun. And the majority, frankly, are not worth the paper they're written on. But the one that you've written, I must say, it's quite beautifully written. I mean, quite obviously done yourself, with a wit and a style. It's called In the Street Where I Live. And I much enjoyed it. And what came across in it, one of the things that fascinated me in it, actually, was this agony of putting on a show. I mean, we're talking now about the laughs up front on stage and it's all working. But how difficult is it? I mean, what sort of process do you go through on opening night, for instance? I mean, what do you feel like when you all that money and all that commitment up there?
Well, you don't think, I suppose you don't, you really, you don't think about anything but the moment. I mean, you don't think about the future or anything. You think about the moment. And I stand in the back of the theater. I suppose everybody is different. I stand in the back of the theater because I've never been able to sit down. And if something that you hope to get a laugh does not get a laugh, I feel like the entire audience is turning around and about to shoot me, you know. And I keep pacing up and down in the back, probably to avoid the bullets or something. And
well, it's not too good when you're standing up there and something similar happens.
Yeah. I know it.
Yes.
But it's you really feel naked and exposed. I always dream that I'm walking naked on Fifth Avenue before a play opens, because that's exactly the way I feel.
You have that recurring dream, do you, before
all the time, yes.
Before every show?
Before every show, because you do feel you're absolutely naked and exposed.
Yeah.
After that, you know, you worry about the reviews and so on.
Yes.
But in the beginning, it's you're just an exposed nerve, that's all.
You've also, of course, I mean, you write in the book very glowingly, although you admit she still mystifies you personally, about Julie Andrews.
Yes.
You place her as a very significant figure in contemporary musical comedy history.
Well, yes, I think it's... we haven't had many great stars, and she had the beginning, and of course became a great star. But she had the beginnings of becoming a great theatrical star, which she then turned away from and went into films and so on. And as musicals have changed over the last 10 or 15 years, I always had the feeling that if Julie perhaps had stayed in the theater and people would have had to write for her,
yeah,
that possibly much more of the traditional music would have continued to be written than did actually happen over the last 10 years. It might even, in a strange way, have made a difference in the history of the theater.
Are there not, is that as significant as that? I mean, what you're saying, in fact, is, in your view, there aren't any comparable stars to carry a show?
No.
Really?
No. There are very, very few. I can't think, in the States, I cannot think of one star now who can, you would say, all by herself or himself can carry a show. Doesn't exist.
Really?
The stars are disappearing. Well, the stars are disappearing everywhere in a way.
So it's not as people fondly imagine that our tastes have changed, that has caused this drop in musical. It's, in your view, the lack of the people to actually perform them.
Yes, well, there seems to be the stars seem to be disappearing. Present companies through this seem to be disappearing.
But musicals
all over the world. There are fewer stars in politics.
Hmm.
You know, there are fewer stars in. Well, I think one of the reasons that athletics and sports are so popular now because there are heroes.
Yes.
But we don't have. I mean, we don't have heroes. This is the age of the anti-hero in the theater and so on.
Talking about politics, of course, I mean, one of your songs became absolutely associated with the Kennedy family, didn't it?
Well, after President Kennedy was assassinated, Theodore White was one of our better political writers, interviewed Mrs. Kennedy, and she said that every night before President Kennedy went to sleep, he used to like to listen to the album of Camelot, and especially those 4 lines, "Don't let it be forgot." That once there was a spot for one brief shining moment, it was Camelot. And so it was picked up, and they became known as the Camelot years, actually, ever since. As a matter of fact, the day after that article appeared, the play was, at that time, was in Chicago.
Yeah.
And there had been headlines all over the country. Don't let it be forgot that once there was a spot for one brief shining moment. And when they came to that moment in the play, the entire audience let out a wail. It wasn't a cry, but almost like a wail. And everything stopped, and everybody just wept for 5 minutes. And they continued to do so for weeks and weeks, whenever that moment appeared.
Have you ever seen the show since? Because you were a friend of Kennedy's, weren't you?
Guess where we went to? We were at prep school together, public school here, then we were at college together. And, no, I have never, after that, I have never been able to go to see Camelot. Well, it was also Moss Hart's, who was a great director. It was his last play. And Fritz retired after that.
Yeah.
And it was just, it became too painful to see it.
One of my favourites, I mean, I think it's a lovely score, actually. I think it's a beautiful score. And one of my favourite songs in it is one that you're, in fact, going to sing for us now. Try to sing, one of the marvellous lyrics, which is, in fact, is How to Handle a Woman. You're fond of this lyric, are you?
Yes, I am.
Well, how did you come to write it?
Well, it was sort of obliquely. It was an idea given to me by Eric Remarque, the famous novelist. He just married Paulette Goddard, whom I had known for many years, and I said to him kiddingly one night, I said, Eric, how can you stand this wild woman? And he said, oh, we never have an argument. I said, what do you mean you never have an argument? He said, well, she comes into the room in a fury because I'm not ready to go out to dinner. I look at her and I say, Paulette, what did you do to your hair? It's so beautiful, and she forgets all about the argument. Or sometimes she comes in screaming about something, and I say, turn around. My God, you look 21 years old tonight. So I said, well, Eric, I'm going to somehow get that into a lyric one day, and that was how I had to think of it. So,
Mr. Lerner, Harry Sturlam, our pianist, your pianist, awaits you over there. So that's what we're going to hear then, in fact, one of the lovely songs, lyrics that Alan Jay Lerner wrote for Camelot, and it's called How to Handle a Woman.
How to handle a woman. There's a way, said the wise old man, a way known by every woman since the whole rigmarole began. Do I flatter her, I beg him answer? Do I threaten or cajole or plead? Do I brood or play the gay romancer? Said he smiling, no indeed. How to handle a woman? Mark me well, I will tell you, sir. The way to handle a woman is to love her, simply love her, merely love her, love her, love her.
Right, to one generation, my final guest was Mrs. Dale of radio soap opera fame. To another generation, she was one of the greatest stars this country's ever produced. She was a Cockney kid, one of a family of 16 children who went on to conquer the West End and Broadway in a series of scintillating musicals. She went into movies, worked in Hollywood, one point ranked alongside Clark Gable in world popularity polls. Here's a moment from Evergreen, one of the greatest triumphs she created on film. Ladies and gentlemen, would you welcome Jessie Matthews? You look very beautiful.
Thank you.
Made it yourself, you told me.
Yes, that's true.
That's right.
I can only make caftans. I can't make dresses.
I think that was the kind of style we saw on there, actually, that Alan was saying was missing nowadays, actually, that kind of sort of...
Charm and grace.
Thank you.
It's an extraordinary background for you to come from, because thinking about it, actually, I mean, you had a kind of Eliza Doolittle background, didn't
Yes,
you?
yes, I did, yes. Actually, I don't think if I hadn't lived where I lived that I would have ever made the West End.
Why was that?
Well, because I was right at the top of Windmill Street.
Yeah.
I was right on top of the theatres, and as I danced, my sister said that I was born dancing. I never, ever walked anywhere. Well, there was no other way to go but on the stage, was there?
That extraordinary sequence is still there, the kicks and that sort of thing. I mean, that's a kind of freaky thing, isn't it? I mean...
I don't really know it, but I had a new hip put in, the left hip. Maybe that was a cause. But when I had the examination afterwards, I lifted up my right hip and went out. And he said, oh, my God, how long have you been able to do that? And I said, all my life. He said, well, don't try it with the left one. You've got a normal one in that one.
Really? There's some double jointed in your,
Yes,
in your hip,
be.
in fact.
Yes.
But I mean, you were 16 children in your family, weren't there? 11 survived.
Yes, 16.
That's right.
11 survived, yes.
It seems to me extraordinary that you should have an ambition from that kind of background to ever be a great star.
Well, I just sort of danced and danced and danced. I really did as a child, and it wasn't difficult to learn to dance. I mean, somebody said do a pirouette, and I watched it. And it sounds like conceit, really. It's not really. It's just that I just got up and did it.
Yes.
And so there was no holding me back. I just had to sort of dance.
You went to ballet school?
Yes, I went to ballet school.
Did you ever, at any time, get sort of, I should imagine there's quite a cross-section of kids at ballet school, mainly posh kids, I would have
Very,
thought.
very posh.
Did you ever feel envious of any of them?
Not envious, no, a little embarrassed, we'll put it that way. I felt a little much like the sort of little, my jersey and skirt and my bloomers, and they came in cars with nannies and things. I felt a little, not really envious, a little bit sort of in awe, really, I think, of them.
Yes.
A little in awe.
Yeah. You took elocution lessons, too, didn't
Yes,
you?
yes.
Do you ever write Go Blimey accent?
Oh, I had a Go Blimey, a lovely Go Blimey accent.
Did you?
Oh, yes.
Can you still do it?
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll hear it a little later on, I hope.
Oh, I see. When you do a bit
Yes,
from...
yes,
Yes, all right, fine.
And actually, that was one argument I had with my sister Rosie, because I entered a competition at the age of 11. It was called Killed at the Ford. And I got the third prize instead of the first out of 200 children, which wasn't bad. But she said, you should have got the gold cup. And apparently she said, I said, and I saw by the light. I said, I didn't say light. You said light. And I was shaken all the way home. She said, I didn't. She said that I did a wrong phrasing. Now, you don't forget being shaken all the way home in the tube station. You just don't in the tube. I had a terrible time because of that. And from that day onwards, whenever anybody gave me a Cockney oi, oh, they were so wrong, because it was such a lesson. I never ever forgot that I lost the cup because I said light, and I saw by the light of the surgeon's lamp. And then I said 2 white roses. Everything was perfect but the light.
She was, of course, a profound influence in your life, wasn't she not, your sister Rosie?
Actually, if you were to say to Rosie now, you made Jessie a star. That's right.
Really?
No, oh, yes. She didn't realize I had to go on and do it anyway.
No, but she drove you.
She was the fourth behind. And we'd be at an audition, the very first audition when I was going to have lessons with this Elise Clare, this marvelous teacher of ballet. And this girl got up, and 3 years older than myself, performed beautifully. A loud voice said, my sister can do it better than that. I just wanted to die on the floor. Oh, said Madam, come on. Can you imagine that with all the mums sitting round with all their kids? And then as I got up, Rosie said, don't forget the fouette at the end. I'd never done a fouette. That's what I mean by saying I saw it. Thank God. I was able to do it.
You imitated it, yes.
But I was able to sort of, but I danced very badly because all the time I was worrying about the blasted fouette, where I was going to put it. Yeah. And as to whether I'd do it or land on my bottom on the floor, having tried to do something to please Rosie. I didn't dare come back without having tried it anyway.
The thing I love about your story, actually, is that rather sort of romantic tinge to it about the beginning, when literally you were the chorus girl who took over from the leading lady,
yes.
weren't you?
I
love that.
People talk about never having had an opportunity. But I think if you really think back and think about your life, an opportunity does come. And it's up to you to recognize it, take it. And once you've taken it, from then, it's up to you what to do with it. Because Charlotte came over to watch the understudies in New York. And the girl who was understudying Gertrude Lawrence was standby understudy.
How old were you, by the way, this time?
16.
16,
yeah.
in New York.
Yeah. And she sang very flat.
Who did?
Well, we won't mention her name.
Oh, the understudy.
The understudy.
The Gertrude Lawrence, yes.
Very flat. So Charlotte said, will you please do it again? Oh, no, she said, I will not, and strode off. So he yelled out, who's the second understudy? So I jumped up and said, I am. And poor Danny O'Neill, the stage director, said, for God's sake, sit down, I'm in enough trouble, sit down. And I said, Danny, I know it all. He said, you don't? I said, I do, I know it all. I know all the songs, all the dances, all the sketches. And he said, well, Gov, we haven't had much time to rehearse Jessie, but she does know most of it. And Charlotte said, do you? And I said, yes. And he said, well, come on. And I performed, went out to lunch, came back, on the board, first understudy, Jessie Matthews, second understudy, the first. And I thought, God, what have I done? I was really frightened. I tore up into the dressing room, burst into tears, and I couldn't look at any of the girls because they were horrified that I dared do such a thing and got away with it, you know.
Yes.
And it was then I thought, what do I do now? I'm understudy. I was really frightened, very, very frightened. And I rushed to singing lessons, I rushed to dancing lessons, and really began to take it very seriously.
Yeah. You then, of course, when you came back to Britain and then later in America, you worked with some extraordinary names and talent.
Yes, I was very lucky.
Well, Richard
very
Rogers,
lovely.
Larry Hart wrote songs for you.
Larry's lovely story. Did you ever work with Larry Hart?
No, Larry started me, though.
Did he?
Yes, he was the first one I showed lyrics to.
Well, we're talking about the verse of Hart Stood Still. He hadn't got a verse. And I think it's been told before, though, when Cochrane said, well, where's the verse? We know the chorus is fine, but where's the verse? Oh, you want a verse? You want a verse? And he took out an envelope. Yeah. In his still school days, I hated boys. Those April Fool days brought me loveless joys, loveless joys. I read my Plato, love I thought of sin. Since look at I'm reading Mrs. Gwynn, how's that?
But he apparently could compose like that, couldn't he, Alan?
He's the only lyric writer that could write that.
And handed over the
as they say in motion pictures, you know.
Yeah,
right.
And
then I wrote.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's astonishing.
It's quite fantastic. But I think his story, I did his life story on radio, and I was really upset. It took me about 2 days to get over crying. When he was dying, he said, what have I lived for? Can you imagine a great artist like that making an awful remark like that?
He's a very haunted man, wasn't he?
What have I lived for?
Fritz and I brought him home the night he died.
Really?
Yes.
Too awful.
We were now searching for him because he was missing. Nobody could find him. So we knew the bars that he went to, and I went to 6th Avenue and Fritz went to 8th Avenue. And Fritz found him actually sitting in a gutter with the rain beating down.
He had pneumonia, didn't he?
Then Fritz called me and he said, I found him, and brought him back to his apartment and said, now Larry, promise me you'll go to sleep. And he went, don't go out again. And he went upstairs and he never woke up. 47 years old.
Oh, dreadful.
And look what he wrote.
Yes, look what he wrote.
Amazing.
The greatest.
Yeah.
If you mention it to Richard Rogers, he still gets very angry.
Does he?
Yes, he said he drove me mad. Drove me mad.
You were
very angry.
You worked with Coward too, didn't you know?
Yes. He was quite a taskmaster.
Yes.
That my English was at fault there when he started saying in Room with a View, high above the mountains and sea. How do you spell mountain? M-O-U-N-T-A-I-N. How do you say it? Mountain. Then for God's sake sing mountain, not mountain.
Did you know Coward at all?
Well, not really well, but first time I met, I was in a play at the Criterion Theatre, and there was a knock on my dressing room door one night. This was, ages ago, 15 years ago. And knock came, and I said, who's there? And the voice said, Nell Carr. Now, I thought it was the chap in the next dressing room to me, John Stanley. I said, run off, Johnny. Nell Carr. I said, go on, push off, Johnny. Nell Carr. And I opened the door. It was like meeting Jehovah. There he was. And he just said, it was the most wonderful thing. He said, I'd just like to say that I thought you were terribly, terribly good and went. It was just wonderfully kind. He often did go around and encourage me. The last time I saw him...
kindest man.
He really was.
Oh, yes.
But there are so many stories like that. Last time I saw him, I was in a musical called Charlie Girl, and he he'd been in Switzerland and been having some treatment. They'd been giving him sheep glands in his clinic. And as soon as he arrived at Savoy, he saw the show, came over to see it, and came round to the dressing room afterwards. And Coley, his friend, said that when Noel had arrived at the sheep gland clinic, there were all these sheep on the hillsides, and amongst them there was one black one, and Noel looked up and said, "I see they're expecting Paul Robeson." He's a wonderfully funny and kind man.
Fabulous.
You had, too, an extraordinary movie career as well. I needed reminding, actually. The people you've acted opposite, always sort of great acting nights, didn't you? Gielgud,
yes.
Richardson,
Yeah.
Redgrave, Johnny Mills.
Yes, lovely. Yes, I was very lucky indeed.
And nearly, in fact, once danced with Fred Astaire.
Oh, that was the saddest thing of all. It really was, yes. I flew to Hollywood for the Red Cross to do Forever and a Day, small part. And after 3 days shooting, they offered me the next Fred Astaire film. And I phoned New York. They promised they'd be through in 3 weeks. Would they release me? They said, no, we start rehearsals next week. And I hung around for 3.5 months before they started rehearsals.
Really?
Which was tragic. Then again, I've been looking back and thinking, I was a solo dancer. More than because I didn't have really lead partners. Reasonably good, but not up to my standards, said she modestly. And I had, Fred Astaire was a leader dancer. So whether we would have clashed like mad, I don't think so, because I think I would have bowed down and said, it's all yours, and I would have handed myself straight to him. I'm sure I would.
I don't know.
Because
Everybody that I ever
super.
knew who danced with him said that he made each partner feel like she was dancing better than she ever danced before.
Yes, that's what I mean. I would have handed it to him and said, well, come on, I'm all yours. Because I used to notice with poor Ginger, I had what I call controlled spins. I could stop on any one. But with Ginger, I used to watch him. He'd throw her out and then grab her. And she'd stop dead, but only because he stopped her.
Yeah.
If you watch the dance,
She'd have gone on out.
She'd have gone out. Very true. And I remember thinking, well, thank God I can stop. He doesn't have to do that, you know.
Yes.
Because she was going up and then stop, you know, and then he'd swing her back again. She put her life in his hands every time.
Yes.
I couldn't have done that. I would say, wait a minute, don't grab me, I'll stop. Just wait till I stop before you grab me.
Apparently, of course, too, he made, of course, every partner he danced with look marvellous.
Yes, look marvellous.
But apparently he was an excessively hard taskmaster.
Was he?
An obsessional perfectionist.
Well, that's all right, me too.
You too?
Oh, with dancing, I drove everybody mad.
Yes.
Raped 6 weeks on every routine.
Yes.
I drove myself mad and everybody else around me mad when I was working.
It's in your book, isn't it, Alan, about the story you tell about meeting us there?
One night I was coming across the MGM lot. It was about 7 o'clock, and all those big, huge sound stages were dark and gloomy, and suddenly out of this little door came Fred Astaire with a towel wrapped around his neck, and he came over and he put his arm around my shoulder, and he said, "Oh, Alan, why doesn't somebody tell me I can't dance?"
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's exhausting.
And that's the reason he was Fred
Exhausting,
Astaire, you said.
Yeah.
Or you were. No.
How did you enjoy Hollywood, Jessie? Because you were there, weren't you?
I did enjoy it very much.
Did you?
Well, at the time when I went over, we weren't very efficient in our studios. We really weren't. I mean, if you want, I don't know whether Derek will realize, if you wanted a piece of hair to go in front, it was 3 weeks. They'd take a bit of your hair, they'd match it up, they'd make the curls, and then you'd have it. But it would be 3 weeks. There, I needed something in the character for my forehead. And they just opened 3 drawers and said, that's the one. And there was masses of curls everywhere, and they just took it out to tack it on. And then the hairdressers, they had one this side and one that side.
2 hairdressers.
2 hairdressers. And then they measured me, and I said, when will I have a fitting? And they said, what for, honey? We've got your measurements. And I thought, oh, that's ridiculous. And it wasn't. I stepped into that dress, and that went the zip, and that was that.
Yes.
I didn't have a fitting.
Yes.
Which everybody, to their job, were perfectionists. They knew exactly what they were doing. And I was called the playback queen in England because I managed to record to my voice well. But there, they sat on the floor. And for the first time in my life, I had to take 2. And I said, hey, don't take my reputation away. Bloke sitting on the floor, especially to watch your mouth.
Yes.
Everything was perfection.
Yes.
Had to be.
Mm. But you enjoyed it
I
nonetheless?
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because of that. Because of that, you felt that you had people around you that knew their job. They were going to see that you looked right. They were going to see that your synchronization was there and that your dress fitted, and it was gorgeous.
Yes, I think that was right, wasn't it? That was what it was about, that period in Hollywood. It was about the product was actually perfect. It might have been bad in the sense it was a bad screenplay or whatever.
But technically
it was perfect.
Yes,
I must tell you,
people.
I did a film with Lee Marvin, who had never sung before, Potential Wagon. And he had to lip sync for one song, I'm Wandering Star. And it took him 3 weeks.
Oh.
Really?
3 weeks. One day we got one word.
Oh, no.
And then we put that on to the rest, you know.
Oh, dear.
It was quite a funny noise when he'd finished, wasn't it?
When Fritz heard it, he said, my boy, you must be mad. What is that?
Oh, dear.
And now you're playing wild, aren't you? You're about to... Are you going
Yes, I am.
to
I'm
play?
playing with Duchess of Berwick. I've just done a film with Edward Yates and Mr. Simpson, playing Mrs. Simpson's Aunt Jessie with an American accent. I hope it's not too bad.
No,
I did my best. With a slight southern accent, which I found rather difficult, but with the help of a leading lady, I coped. And I'm starting Duchess of Berwick next week. At least I did a couple of days last week, and it's fun. It's great fun.
And you also, of course, because you are going to give us a little...
I mean, after Lloyd, you know, it's not bad.
After Lloyd, well, we're going to need a bit of that now, because, in fact, you're going to do a couple of songs, aren't you, from My Fair Lady? And you played Eliza, didn't you, in Pygmalion?
Yes, I did. I had big successes with Liz.
Yes.
Enjoyed it.
You like it?
I liked it very much.
All right, then, Jessie, there's Aris Turum, your accompanist. So, to round things off, a reminder of one of the greatest musicals ever written, and a tribute to the man who wrote the lyrics, Alan Jay Lerner. Here's Jessie Matthews and two of the marvellous songs from My Fair Lady.
All I want is a room somewhere far away from the cold night air, with one enormous chair. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely? Lots of chocolate for me to eat, lots of cows making lots of eat, warm and warm face. I could have done all night, I could have done all night, and still have begged for more. I could have spread my wings and done 1,000 things I've never done before.
I calculate that made you another bob or two tonight. That 500 million quid that you've already got. Well, not you've already got, but that marvellous show's made. Jessie, thank you.
Thank
Being
you
my
for
guest.
having me.
And Alan Jay Lerner, thank you too. And Derek, as always, thank you. Glad to have you on the show. From all of us here, until the same time next week, goodbye.